Hello there. I'm looking at Genesis 42 today. We see that Jacob saw there was grain in Egypt. He goes and tells his sons, his 10 sons, not Benjamin. He's going to keep Benjamin with him. But his 10 sons, there's grain down in Egypt. Go down to Egypt and buy some grain. So the story shifts from the focus on Joseph, and I mean, he's going to be part of this again, but it lets us see now, because we've heard nothing now what's been going on in these 22 years, except the story of Judah. And I skipped that. That was Genesis 38. You can read that. But nothing other than that, what had really happened over these years. And now we see where the stories intersect. Right here, the brothers go towards Egypt. And as they come to Egypt, they do this. It says, and Joseph's brothers, in verses 6, came in and bowed to him, noses to the ground. You know, this was 13 years ago that Joseph had this dream that his, family was bowing down to him. Now it says here in verses 9 this. So Joseph, it says verse 8, he recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them. That is, after 13 years, one of the things I wrote in my Bible here, well, I wrote wow, but I wrote Genesis 37:20. There will always be dream killers around God's people. You know, God, many times, he in one way, shape, or forms, lets people know sometimes, gives them a promise of some sort, or something that, he lets them know, even through their quiet time, when he speaks to them quietly. Just sometimes there's something that God, or even a dream he's given you, and then there will be people around you who, just like the brothers who are dream killers, who will say, that will never happen. And then even they will even use time against it. See, like this isn't going to happen. God did not really say that. This is not God. God would not do that. And they're dream killers. And usually it's people who are close to you. People who are close to you, because the enemy knows that if somebody from the outside says it, it's not nearly as effective as somebody very close and personal to you. And so, these brothers of Joseph, they hated him. They say, let's see what becomes of his dreams as they get him and as they throw him down in the pit and as they sell him. Let's see what becomes of his dreams, this dreamer. Well, 13 years later, Joseph himself would have even, I have these dreams from God, like those were just dreams and random. And, it would be easy to imagine Joseph just giving up on those dreams altogether. But here it says it's like he's forgotten these dreams. He's wanted to forget because he's had such a difficult time in Egypt, being a slave, being a prisoner. And now finally, he's been put in a position of power, and he looks down and all his brothers bow down before him. And this is what he says. This is what it says. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them. That's just incredible. Just to soak that in. And God is bringing to fruition the dreams that he's given Joseph 13 years earlier. God is sometimes, we look at God and we see the promise that he may have made to us, and we say, God, it's not going to happen. God, this is not going to come into fruition, and because it hasn't come into fruition, it's been like a year. God is he's in no hurry at all. He brings things to pass when he brings things to pass. And I think the most difficult thing for us as Christians is to be in a time of waiting. We do not like to wait. When God calls you into some kind of ministry, and you don't know quite what that ministry would be, but he's calling you into something. The most difficult thing is the waiting. It's not actually, once you're in the ministry, then you're doing what God is wanting you to do, but it's the waiting. The waiting is the most difficult time. And in the waiting is also when all the doubt comes. I mean, you can just read that into this story as well. Because Joseph, being a slave and being in prison, would, what are his dreams? He would not even want to think about them. They're not going to come to pass. Look where I am. How am I ever going to get out of here? I've been in slavery. I've been in prison. It's been 22 years. Well, it was 13 years at this point. So it was 13 years. And that's a long time when you're in that. Day after day after day. God, where are you? God, even though he knew God was with him, it's like, God, how is this ever going to happen? And so for us to take from that is we need to believe God. We need to believe when he says something, when we hear those voices around us, usually the voices of people who are close to us, even family, we need to recognize and realize that God's voice trumps them all. And that God will bring to fruition what he has said. And we need to trust in him and have faith in him to do so. And it is never easy, never easy. And I mean, here, Joseph's dreams are beginning, and this is actually part of the dream that's being brought to fruition. His brothers tell him this. They say, we are honest. We're all sons of one man. We are honest. Your servants are not spies. And he says, no, you are spies. And we see now Joseph beginning a test to see whether his brothers have changed or not. You see in verses 15, it says, by this you shall be tested. And he says to them that, he says to them, send one of you, in verses 16, and let him bring your brother, and you be bound, and let your words be proven, because they tell him he has a brother. And so Joseph, I think in a way, Joseph is like, okay, all of you are going to go to prison. You're going to send one back and bring your brother back, and then I will know you're not spies. But it's almost like a night of sleep as they're all in prison. And the next day, Joseph changes his mind and says, no, I will only keep one of you here, and all the rest are going to go back. And next time you come, you have to bring your brother. Because I think Joseph, in the moment, he sees his brothers. Imagine the last time he saw their faces was angry, selling him away, rejecting him. What's going to come of your dreams now? We're finally rid of this scum. That's the last time he saw them. He does not have a good, this reunion here is bringing back memories of his past that he would rather forget. That his brothers' faces would have brought back everything. And so in application to us, there are things in our past that sometimes, there are things that we do not want to deal with or never dealt with. And we try and run away from them. But God wants us to deal with things that we've undealt with. If there's unforgiveness in our past, if there are things that we need to talk through, and if there's bitterness that's held, if there's any of those things in our past, whatever it may be, God knows. And he has a way of bringing those things back up to the front so that we deal with them. And that's in all of our lives. And we have things that we need to deal with because, even though we want to forget about them, they're still there. Even I think even my grandma now, like she's almost she's very sick and dying, but there's some things now in that 95 that she had to make right with siblings. And so God, even after many years, will give us opportunity to do that. And sometimes we'd rather forget and cover them up. We'd rather say, like even if there was something done against a spouse or a worker or something we stole, well, that was just history, it's forgotten. No, like we got to make things right. And God, I believe, will bring forth the opportunity to do that. And he will nudge for us to do that. But now back to the story, we see that Joseph changes his mind. And now instead of just sending one of them back in verse 16, he said to them in verse 19, let one of your brothers be bound in your prison house, and you go bring grain for the famine of your houses. And so he grabs Simeon, and he realizes that if he only sends one person back, the rest are probably going to starve because they're hungry. So send them all back but one. And the next time you're going to bring back your brother that you were talking about. This is what they say in verse 21 as they're leaving. And I think they have tried to bury this. I don't think they talked about this much at all. Even though they never talked about it, it was always in their mind. They couldn't get away from the fact, they thought they were getting rid of Joseph. They thought they were getting rid of the problem, but the problem just intensified when they got rid of him because the guilt crept in, and the guilt was killing them. And they say in verse 21, and they said each man to his brothers, we are truly guilty because of our brother, whom we saw in distress of his soul when he begged us, and we did not hear. So this distress has come to us. And they heard Joseph pleading for his life in that well. He's like, brothers, what are you doing? Like, save me, what is this wicked thing you're doing to me? And they ignored him. They heard his distress, and they decided to sell him anyway. And now they're looking at one another and saying, look, what is this happening to us? Why is this brother being taken? What is going on? And they even say here, they're saying, what is God doing to us? And they say, right there, verse 28. And their hearts went out, and they went each man terrified, saying to his brother, what is this God has done to us? It's almost blaming God for something that they did. What is this game God is playing with us? What is he? And it's almost like a blaming of God, because they need to come to grips with what they have done and confess what they have done. And anyways, this video is getting long, but I want to talk about this more next time.